very good evening to you all. It's a warm good evening, and it's warmer outside, I know. This is the third in a series of four video interviews that we are holding. That is the future of Kerala, the Huddle. The Federal Bank presents the Huddle about the future of Kerala. We will be in the next 60 to 70 minutes. There will be a chat between the former chairman of Federal Bank, Sri C. Balagopal, and the director and CEO of Tamara Leisure Experience, that is Shruti Shibulal. She is the daughter of Shibulal, who is one of the founding fathers of Infosys. And now she has she has gone into her own field, that is hospitality industry. She has just started out. In the first two interviews, we had another two titans of the industry, one from the IT and another from the manufacturing sector, Mr. V.K. Matthews and Mr. Faisal Kotikulon. So this is held in different cities, and the invitees are generally HNIs or valued clients of Federal Bank. So the interview, the chat will be about 60 to 70 minutes. After that, the floor would be open for Q&A. And since Shruti wants to leave by 6 o'clock because she has a flight to catch from Kochi, I think we should be finishing by around 6 o'clock. I mean, it cannot go too much beyond 6 o'clock, maybe 6:05. In Calicut, we stopped at 6:05. So the questions will be limited. Three questions, 3 plus 1 could be 3 questions and one last question. And there will be high tea outside arranged for all of you. And let me now invite the welcome speech next. Binoy Augustine, Senior VP and Zonal Head, Federal Bank, Kottayam Zone.
Very good evening to all of you. Today's program, as we have heard just now, the Huddle is a discussion series organized by Federal Bank, and this is the third program. The first program was at Ernakulam, that was on 1st February, and the second program was at Kozhikode, that was in the last week. And some of you must be thinking, why Federal Bank is organizing such programs? See, Federal Bank has been in operation for the last 9 decades, and we have grown with the state of Kerala. 40% of branches of Federal Bank are in the state of Kerala, and we are going to touch 600 numbers of branches in the state of Kerala. Contribution of Pravasis to the economy of Kerala is very well known to all. Same can be said to be the contribution of Federal Bank to the state of Kerala. Pravasis contribution, almost 1/5 of inward remittances are coming through Federal Bank. That means 1/5 of the inward remittances to India, not to Kerala. So that is routed through Federal Bank. And Federal Bank is really the banking partner for the state of Kerala, and we are a predominant player here. And you know that Federal Bank has brought in ATM revolution in the 90s by opening ATMs in every nook and corner of the state. And we do conduct several awareness programs. During COVID time, it was about COVID vaccination, reaching out to the remotest parts of the country. Currently, there is a project called Sanjeevani, where Federal Bank is spreading the awareness all over the country on early detection of cancer. And we do programs against drug abuse, and we have skill development academies, and we support primary education, healthcare, palliative care centers, and so many such activities are there for Federal Bank. So we are involved in all the contemporary matters. And this Huddle today is to be seen in this background. And here, often the main points of discussion are about the migration of youth to overseas countries. Some people call it a brain drain. Some others say that we have a good number of people who are competent enough to work in foreign countries. So many such points of discussions are there. And especially to this geography, we have a certain discussions like a minimum support price for rubber. And when we invited a customer, he was asking whether you would be raising the issue of closure of quarries. Because so many quarries are closed and certain land reforms requirements are also there, whether that would be coming up for the discussion. I said definitely you can raise the question to Bala sir. He would be answering that. And another thing, whether Kerala is industry friendly. Are the youth deserting the state? Is Kerala becoming an old age home? All these may be coming up for discussions here, and our Bala sir must be answering all this. And see about Sri Balagopal Chandrasekhar sir, he is the main pillar of this Huddle. He is an author, entrepreneur, and former IAS officer. He is the governing body member of Center for Management Development. He is an advisor of IIT Palakkad, and he started his industrial unit in Trivandrum, a blood bag manufacturing unit called Penpol, right. And he made it world's #1 manufacturer of blood bags. And he was exporting to 50 countries. And he has written several books, including Below the Radar, View from Kollam, Maveli and Marcus, How Supplyco Held the Prize. On a clear day, you can see India. And he, along with his wife, is running a trust called Anahar, and they support in primary education and healthcare in Manipur and Kerala. Manipur and Kerala are favorite to him because he worked in both places as an IAS officer. And beyond this, we are proud to say that he was the director of Federal Bank and retired as chairman of the bank's board recently. So please join me to proudly welcome Sri Balagopal Chandrasekhar, fondly called Bala sir, to fireside chat. Sir, please. Sir, please take this. Srimati Shruti Shibulal is a young, successful entrepreneur. Some introduction was there initially, and who turned her passion to innovation. She is the CEO and director of Tamara Leisure Experiences. Her group has the unwavering commitment to the core values of people, planet, and prosperity. She has created a good brand in hospitality industry. Madam, we extend you the most hospitable welcome to be in conversation with the Bala sir. Madam, please. Okay, that's it. Sri P. Kishore, I have met him only now, but I usually read his columns, weekly columns, Business Boom. All of you must be reading that. He is a senior business correspondent of Malayala Manorama. He has won Commonwealth Press Union Harry Britain Fellowship. He has won Kerala Government Awards twice for Best Business Journalist. He reported G20 from Washington, the delegation of Dr. Manmohan Singh. And he reported Parliament and Assembly elections 12 times in different states. He is author of a book on business journalism. He translated autobiography of Indira Nooyi, PepsiCo chairperson. He is our moderator for the program today. He was moderator for our 2 earlier programs. Sir, we extend you a great welcome to be the moderator. Please. Our friends from Manorama and Federal Bank, my colleagues, you are all coordinating the entire program. Most cordial welcome to each one of you. Our esteemed customers, successful entrepreneurs, and people from different walks of life, professionals, startup owners, our well-wishers and friends. We invite you to please contribute to the program today, and you will have a lot of takeaways, new insights, and new perspectives. Most respectful welcome to each one of you. This huddle, as I have heard the earlier ones, will be a lovely conversation, and I'm sure that this will open up new horizons for each one of us. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, this is the third in the series of interviews, and Shruti is the youngest person to be interviewed, and Shruti is the only woman in a series of 4 interviews to be conducted, and but there is a common thread running between all the 4 participants of this series of interview, and the common thread is that they all built from a foundation. They all became high achievers from a foundation. All the 3 of them. That is, first 2 interviewees were Mr. V.K. Matthews of IT IBS and then Faisal Kutikalon of KEF Holdings. They not only them, Shruti also a second generation industrialist, and they all built from a foundation and became high achievers, gone beyond expectations. So the other 2, V.K. Matthews and Faisal Kutikalon, they have reached a lot, they have achieved a lot, and Shruti has started out only. And another interesting part is that all the 3 of them ventured into different areas, into areas which are entirely different from what their parents built up, or first generation built up. For example, Shruti, his father Shibulal, one of the founding fathers of Infosys, he was into IT industry. He was the last founding father, chairman of Infosys. Then only professionals became CEOs of Infosys after Mr. Shibulal. And she built on that, but she didn't go into IT. She went into the travel and hospitality industry. She owns 3 brands now, and I will come to that later. But before that, the interviewer, Mr. C. Balagopal, he is also a person who is a high achiever. He was an IAS officer in Trivandrum, just like any other officer, and he left IAS in 1983 and actually literally jumped into the dark. The 70s and 80s were the periods of militant trade unionism in Kerala, and nobody would venture out into manufacturing industry because it was expected that the manufacturing industry is very dangerous with militant trade unionism. Many companies were sinking at that time, but he went right into manufacturing of blood bags and the ancillary items, and that became a success. He started out in a small village called Puliyarakonam of the city limits, and that became he brought in technology from Japan later, from Termo Corporation, and what was Peninsular Polymer then became Penpol, and then later on became Termo Penpol. At a certain time, they were the largest manufacturers of blood bags in the world. Even now, they continue to be one of the largest manufacturers. Sometimes it is said that now new generation industrialist businessmen don't keep any emotional attachment to what they build up. So Mr. Balagopal sold his stake to Termo, and with that he started his philanthropic activities. The one point that we want to highlight here is that we Malayalis generally focused on distribution of wealth. We have been successful in the distribution of wealth. We really distributed wealth, and that's why there is high per capita income here. All the social development that we see is because of the distribution of wealth. But we forgot the fact that we failed to take note of the fact that the creation of wealth is more important. That in order to distribute wealth, you need to create wealth in the first place. So that point is to be reiterated, and Mr. Balagopal created wealth. Now he's into distributing it. The other two interviewees, Mr. IBS, VK Matthews, and Faisal Kotikon, they also created immense wealth, and now they are into distribution of part of that wealth through many philanthropic activities. Shibu's family, there is a family office, Shibulal's family office in Bangalore, and he's also into distribution of that wealth. You know, Shruti's father, Shibulal, came from US from his MS degree in from Boston University. And in 1981, when they were starting this computer industry, it was completely unheard of. Everybody said, you get some job rather than start an industry like this. Because they jumped into the dark, because they took risk, that they were rewarded handsomely. And Shibulal is now worth $1.8 billion. It's officially documented, close to 15,000 crore. So it's on that foundation that Shruti is building on. She has got 3 hotel brands now, Obai Tamra, luxury hotel brand, then Tamra Leisure Resorts, Tamra Resorts, that is another luxury brand. She is the CEO and director of Tamra Leisure Experiences. They have another hotel brand, Lilac, which is a mid-segment brand, which is what she is starting in Guruvayur in a few weeks from now. So that she also owns hotels in Germany. And she has taken a degree from Columbia University. That is Columbia Business School, isn't it? That is MBA. And then Pennsylvania University, she has taken a degree. And she briefly worked in Merrill Lynch as in wealth management. So she has seen it all, done it all, and now come back here. You know, there is one more point I need to highlight. She's not an idler. She, with all her money, she could have been a globetrotter enjoying her money, but she didn't do that. You know, very recently there was an incident, you might have heard about it. Chauhan, you know, Ramesh Chauhan, who owns a distillery and a series of drinks, his daughter Jayanti Chauhan, she refused to take up the reins from her father. Her father is old, in his late 80s, and he tried to sell the whole industry to the Tatas. He was negotiating with the Tatas, and finally the deal did not go through. And now his daughter says, well, she will come back and take up the business from my father. So instead of becoming an idler, instead of enjoying the money, she's created a path for herself, and she has started out a path for herself, and she has become successful even now in a journey of just a few years. She won in 2017. Became the best global young global leader in 2017 World Economic Forum, one of the under 40 CEOs in the list, in one of the major lists, and she keeps on winning award. Even for technology innovation, she has won an award. Her hotel group has won an award recently. So she's out to conquer her own world, just like the founding fathers, including her father, conquered the world in Infosys. Just like our interviewer conquered the world for himself, started out a world for himself, became a high achiever. Bala sir, can we open the forum to you now? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. At the outset, let me thank Federal Bank and Malayala Manorama for organizing this series of conversations with the outstanding entrepreneurs from Kerala doing business in Kerala. And the subject of the conversation is Kerala, is about doing business in Kerala. So before I ask my first question to Shruti, just a little bit of framing of the discussion. Recently, I don't know, some of you may have read about the discussion between Palnivel Thiagarajan, the minister from neighboring Tamil Nadu, and Shashi Tharoor during the Mathrubhumi Lit Fest in Trivandrum. There was a discussion about Kerala, public finances, the Finance Commission, the dispute with the center, and all that. A couple of days later, Palnivel Thiagarajan wrote another piece which was a response to a piece written by somebody, I think it was written by somebody in the UP government, stating that the UP's GDP will surpass Tamil Nadu's very soon, in the coming year. It will, that is, the gross state domestic product of Uttar Pradesh will surpass that of Tamil Nadu. So Palnivel Tyagarajan has given a very, he is a merchant banker and an investment banker, and so he has written a very good response to that. It's very interesting, you should read it. But I'll just highlight a couple of points. He states that the most important, a few important points are, Tamil Nadu has 1/3 the population of Uttar Pradesh. So which straight away means Tamil Nadu has 3 times the per capita gross state domestic product of Uttar Pradesh. So if Uttar Pradesh is surpassing Tamil Nadu's GSDP now, it means it's got still a very long way to go in terms of catching up with Tamil Nadu. Then the second point which Palnivel Tyagarajan stated was, he states that economic development is also more than just gross state domestic product numbers. Development lies in various other things, is better understood by seeing what is the per capita consumption spending. What is the number of doctors you have per 100,000 population? What is the, say, other parameters, HDI parameters? What is the incidence of poverty in that society? So, and he mentions a very important one, which is the gross enrollment rate of women in higher education. And if he was saying, if you compare all this, Uttar Pradesh is not even in the same ballpark. Uttar Pradesh is not in the same page. All these parameters are so far behind that of Tamil Nadu. Now, what was very striking, Shruti, for me was, when I looked at that argument and I looked at the current GSDP figures for Kerala, published figures for Kerala, and divided it by the estimated population today of Kerala, you get a per capita gross state domestic product of Kerala and Tamil Nadu, which is almost exactly the same. Number one. Number two, in all the other parameters which Palnivel Tyagarajan mentions, Kerala is superior to Tamil Nadu. It has more doctors per 100,000 population. Its gross enrollment rate for women is equal, if not higher. Its multidimensional poverty is almost zero, whereas Tamil Nadu is the second best. It's about 7%. And the HDI, as is well known, is far higher. So I said all this only because of the need to frame the discussion that we are talking about, by any measure of economic development, the most advanced state in the country. Otherwise, people think, life expectancy ഇവിടെ കൂടുതലാണ്, infant mortality ഇവിടെ കുറവാണ്, പക്ഷേ വേറെ ഒന്നുമില്ല ഇവിടെ ഈ സംസ്ഥാനത്ത്. So this displays a tremendous ignorance about what is actually happening, and I think a person like Palnivel Tyagarajan brings it out best. So this is the framing of the discussion. So we are not talking about a basket case. We are not talking about a desperate state. We are not talking about a state which somehow has to be salvaged about. We are talking about the success story in economic development by all conventional accepted parameters. So my first question to Shruti is, you are an international business person. I mean, in the sense you studied abroad, you had exposure abroad, you worked in the US in the merchant banking industry, investment banking industry. What made you choose to come back to India, and also to choose to invest significantly into this state?
So, firstly, thank you to Federal Bank, thank you to Malayala Manorama for having me. I know I sound very foreign. My accent is quite, is quite foreign. However, I've actually spent most of my life in India at this point. More than half of my life has been in India. In fact, I was born in India. I spent 1 year studying in Alipura when I was young. And I had this, my family, because of what was happening, moved back and forth from India almost every 5 years. So I have had the luck of being able to be very comfortable in both international environments as well as in Indian environments. I think that's, just to set the context from my side, that's what it's been. When I was working, so my first job, as you mentioned, was in Merrill Lynch. I had this point at which I decided that this wasn't really for me. I wanted to do something which created impact and that I had full ownership and accountability for. And my belief at that time, this was around 2007-8, was that I could create impact if I came back to India and I set up something of my own. So I came back to India the first time. And I ended up establishing a restaurant company. That was my first sort of foray into entrepreneurship. Avant-garde hospitality, yeah. And my first sort of taste of hospitality. And it was an amazing thing, right? Hospitality is an industry which you either love or you hate, because it's truly a very difficult industry to navigate. It is a completely people-driven, system-driven sort of an industry. And it's a difficult business, quite honestly. It is, especially restaurants. I had a great knack for it, for the operations of it, but it is truly a very challenging business to be in. But I got the bug, and I really enjoyed it. And then I went back to the US to study once again, because up till that point, I had never studied business. I was a chemistry student. I had worked in finance a bit. I had done some internships in finance and such. And I had, of course, worked on the floor in this restaurant business, but I didn't have a business background. So I really believed that it was important for me to go back to school and get that fundamental understanding of
Columbia Business School.
So that's why I went to Columbia Business School. And while I was in Columbia, I actually interned at a hotel chain called Shangri-La in Hong Kong. So I went to Hong Kong, spent the summer there, went back to business school and finished up. And that is when Tamara was sort of getting its feet. It had been, the first property was getting developed, and it came to a point where there was a choice to be made whether we would go with, an internationally renowned operator, or would we set up operations ourselves. And again, I had this taste of accountability and ownership and responsibility, which is, at that time, I don't even know if I processed the word entrepreneurship, but that was what it was. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed buildings from scratch. So that's how I got back into it. So I came back to India once again at that point, and essentially, I wasn't there at the very initial days of Tamara, but I started working in various roles, and I became CEO in 2018.
So just to move from that into, like everybody else, I also have a few friends who are entrepreneurs in the tourism and hospitality sector, and people who are active, including architects who design resorts and people who build resorts for investors. One of the complaints, you can say, one of the observations which many have made is about the time delays taken in giving approvals in Kerala, one. Two, the ambiguity which surrounds land use, so that if somebody buys a plot of land, they don't seem to have a certain degree of confidence that they can do the project which they had intended when they bought the land, because of various things. So this ambiguity, so these are anathema for an investor in terms of uncertainty, ambiguity, and all that are not things which investors like. And there are many anecdotal accounts of this. So as a seasoned, now a significant investor into the tourism and hospitality domain, not only in Kerala, but in other states in India, what do you think the Kerala government should do? Because see, there are so many things in favor of tourism and hospitality in India. And I mean in Kerala. So we should not, as the in a metaphoric way, I'm saying we should not snatch defeat from victory in terms of we've got all these things going for us, and but there are still some things which are holding back investors, like protracted delays in giving approvals, ambiguity, etc. Have you encountered this? A, B, in the discussions within the tourism fraternity, is this a matter of concern, and do you feel that the government is doing something about it?
So this kind of is related to what you were talking about in manufacturing, right? There's this perception issue. I think, if you just very sort of unemotionally look at tourism in Kerala, there's that whole statistic about how we have more five-star hotels than any other state in the country. Kerala tourism has boomed in the last 20, 25 years. There had to be a huge amount of investment that came into the industry, right? So it's not that any of this frictions has actually stopped the investment, right? It is again sort of a perception issue. Any democracy, any bureaucracy, any setup like this will have frictions, right? It is never going to be the perfect, smoothest system. We operate in Germany, right? And I know it's different, but it is actually not any less or any more difficult. And even from a time perspective, I will say that it is not any more or any less. It is actually equally sort of, easy or difficult to operate in both countries, just different challenges. So I think sometimes these, what we say, right, what we complain about, it sometimes is a little bit out of proportion. I say the same thing about Bangalore traffic, by the way. I think this is the one that I am much more tolerant of Bangalore traffic than I think most people are. But this, I do think that these are things which, of course, there are some challenges, right? I think that when it comes to land use, for instance, I do think the amount of due diligence that has to be done is immense. And even then, you may miss something. It is possible. When it comes to, is it something that the fraternity talks about? Yes, it is something that is talked about. But I think it's also talked about pretty much in every state of the country. I don't think it's something which is exclusive to Kerala. I think in general, people want to have single window clearance. I think people want to have transparency as to what the compliances are like, what the land use rules are. I do think that one thing Kerala has done really well is this focus on sustainability and responsibility to the environment, and therefore there is a lot of protection rules on land use within the state. Now that is something which, in my mind is something which is really important. I think CRZ rules are extremely important because it protects the coastline. Now, of course, there is this other side of it, which is, is it hampering industry growth? But finally, the point is that these coastlines are extremely fragile, and if we want them to be in the same condition they are today, 50, 100 years from now, rules have to be in place, and hospitality and any industry really needs to work around some of those rules.
I think,
Sounds like she's on the same page like you. So she has become an
let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes.
So very positive about Kerala.
You have made a very interesting, observation, which is, and I think this is very important in discussing business, particularly in Kerala, or the economic environment in Kerala. We hear sometimes many statements made without any comparator. There is no comparison made. See, if you say, for example, 10% or some number, say, let us say, 10% of the students leaving, or a certain percentage of students graduating from high school leave the state for higher education, then everybody will say, oh my God, that's really bad. Is it bad? How many students are leaving from all the other states? Nobody asks that question. And it's very interesting. And I'm very curious about this because I like to go after data. So I went and checked the data. There is a recent study done by, I think, one of the newspapers. I think Times of India, one of them. And they've made a list of 8 top states the 8 top-ranking states which have students leaving the country for higher education. Kerala does not even figure in that list. It's not there. That means it must be 9th or 10th or something. It's not in the top 8. But here we in the discussions here, I have heard people say, this is because, it's a vote of no confidence in the future of Kerala. The state has no future. And so people are drawing these kind of apocalyptic conclusions with very little data to support it. And when you look at the data, the highest number of people leaving, so if the same conclusion, let us say that students leaving a state is a vote of no confidence in the state, the highest number leaving is probably Gujarat and Maharashtra. So is it a sign of no confidence in Gujarat and Maharashtra, which are supposed to be 2 of the most highly industrialized states? Here I know there are many people, I'm not one among them, but there are many people here who wish Kerala was like Gujarat, or Kerala was like Tamil Nadu, or Kerala was like... I'm glad Kerala is Kerala for what it is, which is in terms of all the human development indices, because what is economic development? But that's a big subject. So the first thing, I think what we need to bring balance into our discussion is not that these numbers are right or wrong. The framing of this by understanding interstate comparisons actually brings about a sense of balance in the whole discussion. So this is not an argument which one wants to win. This is a information which one wants to learn about, so that we become better informed. One more question on specifically about the tourism domain, tourist sector, before we move on to more general observations about the economy. This other question which I have is, I heard my good friend Jose Dominic, who is probably one of the really great innovators in this sector, not only in the state, in this country. Jose Dominic was telling me about an incident that he heard a speaker at a seminar in Goa say this, at a seminar there. And that speaker said, when during the pandemic, the tourism sector just shut down and all travel shut down, the differential effect of what happened in Goa and what happened in Kerala was very interesting, according to that Goan speaker. He said, in Goa, all those big hotels shut down. And the management, which were all people from outside Goa, they went back to and they were engaged elsewhere. The people who lost their jobs were all the Goans who had all the lower jobs, like the housekeeping staff and the janitors and that kind of jobs. He said the difference in Kerala was that most of the Kerala ventures were small ventures, started by entrepreneurs, staffed by their own people, and who were able to weather the storm in terms of, and didn't send people off home and things like that. And so he was saying, there was a very big difference in the character of this industry, which, like big industry in manufacturing, where factories come, the top management comes from somewhere, only the workers are from that area, compared to an SME or an MSME where, including the proprietor, the owner, the directors, all of them are from that area, and plus the employees. There's a very big difference. So this is a very interesting observation about the fact that there was a special character to a lot of the entrepreneurial ventures in Kerala tourism, which was based on local resources, using local people, using local capital even, and they just grew organically, including the famous CGH group is itself a classic example of this. Could you comment on this from your knowledge from a broad view of the tourism and hospitality sector, and from an economy perspective, what was this so unusual about this Kerala model?
So I'll first just talk a little bit about the hospitality sector in general. I think, in my mind, hospitality is one of the most diverse populations from an industry perspective across industries, because it really is a very inclusive business, right? So we get people in any of our hotels, people from every sort of end of the country. everybody comes, right? Because the jobs are good. There are, you can work up the chain. The hurdle to get into the industry is fairly low. So I think in that way, the diversity of any hotel across India is very strong. So I think that's the first thing to remember. In Kerala, I would say as opposed to other states, we don't struggle as much to maintain a balance of local to outside, non-Malayalis. In other states, it is a bit more difficult. We have a goal within the organization that over 40% of our staff needs to be local. In Kerala, I saw it about 2 days ago, it's something like 55. And it's not a challenge to say, to say that half or...
50% locals.
55% local.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for that reason, what happens is as you said, right, the population is very local, it's locally supported, the community supports you from, all sides of it. Even our vendors, I mean, hospitality, again, you have to think about the supply chain as well. A lot of it is local, right? We get our fruits and vegetables, like most of our major consumables also from locals. So it is a very, hospitality may look very fancy and look very big, but finally a lot of it is based on your local economy and that local support system. So in Kerala, what we saw was, number one, the hotels really didn't shut, as opposed to what some of the other states did, right? In Kerala, I don't think our hotel, at that time we were only running one, but it never officially shut. Yes, it never officially shut. We were never asked to shut, which I think in the first place, that was a very good policy, because what that meant is that we were running somehow or the other, and it's important for a hotel to run. We were able to continue to keep employed. We were able to look out for some business here or there. It was okay. As an organization, we took a call that we were not going to lay off anyone. We were very clear about this. We knew that we could weather the storm for a certain amount of time. We ran the numbers and we said we're not laying off anybody. Everyone stays employed. The top 3% of the organization took a salary cut. And that was it. Everyone else, either they were working as maintenance, right, to just keep up the properties, or they went home, or they were in accommodation and they had to go through training. So the second we were allowed to sort of open up to larger numbers, we were there. We were the first to be there. We were open. So I would say that, in that way, it's, what you're saying is very true. That there is sort of this locality sort of, what do you call it, influence, or that microcosm, it's very strong, and it's a really important one, I think, for our industry.
Since we started with this discussion with about the students living in droves to foreign lands, and you also went abroad for your higher studies. You took your degree from Pennsylvania University and from MBA from Columbia Business School, but you came back. You could have easily settled in the US. You worked in Merrill Lynch briefly for some time in wealth management. You could have easily got a green card. You could have become a regularized US citizen. But you came back and you started your business here. And you yourself mentioned in a different way that you thought that if you come back here, there is a purpose, and that you can become a leader of the society, which you have become in the hospitality sector. Now, it's not particular about Kerala that students are leaving. Actually, students are leaving India for abroad, and with the express intention of migrating to a foreign country. They are leaving for countries which welcome immigrants. So is it really a big loss for us? Is it a drain for us? Some people call it brain drain. And is it a big drain on the exchequer also, that we teach them, they become engineers, doctors, and they live abroad? What is your take on that?
So I think two things. One is, I actually don't know the numbers over time, but I would wonder, has this percentage of people leaving changed over the last 10, 20 years, right? Because this, people leaving Kerala for the Gulf, for instance, is not at all a new phenomenon. This is a pretty old phenomenon. And so I don't know, right? Have the numbers changed? Has it increased or not? And maybe you can enlighten me to that. So that's the number one thing that I would like to understand. The second thing is, Kerala has benefited enormously from people having gone abroad in the past, right? There has been a tremendous amount of income which has come back into the state, a huge amount of investment which has come back into the state, which has benefited.
Remittance also.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, of course, but it has benefited enormously from sort of these people who still have a very deep loyalty and connection to Kerala, right? And I think I was talking to somebody today, the Malayali associations of the world, the communities, Malayali communities around the world are extremely, you know, they're very, very tight, and they really care about the state. So even if they leave, it's not like their heart leaves. So a lot of benefit has come to the state because of people having moved around as well. The other thing that I would say is that, you know, today I came back, but I am not the only one who has come back, and I certainly will not be the only one who comes back. The next 20 years for India is looking phenomenal, right? The word on the street is that the kind of growth that we will see, the kind of development and innovation that will happen on in the next 20 years, it's looking very, very good. So I would be very interested to see, number one, how many people will be leaving, but how many people are coming back, in fact, right? A lot of people will be getting educated abroad, like myself. They will come back because the kind of impact that you can have in this country, the kind of opportunity for entrepreneurship, the kind of, you know, the ability to do some of these things, and thereby having impact for social good is very, very high in India. I have a business which, of course, like at the core, it is the hotel business, right? It's hospitality. But I have a very strong vision of this idea of responsible hospitality in that we should do it right. We should help the community that we're in. We should help the environment in which we're located in. We should provide meaningful employment to people. That is, I don't think that's exclusive of my generation, right? The millennials and the new generation that's coming up, they feel very strongly about social, being, you know, having social purpose as well, having some meaning to what they're doing. So I do think that that's something which connects very deeply in India and will be possible.
So here, again, I would just like to frame this issue. You know, Kishore was talking about that you know, at the national level, there is an issue. There are lots of people leaving. Actually, you know, many of us will know that till recently, there was one country which was always ahead of India. You know, India is the place from where we contribute the maximum number of students to, I mean, very high numbers of students to the US, to UK, to various European countries. But there was one country always ahead of us. And which is that country? China. China contributed more students to the US, more students to UK, more students to Germany, more students to many other countries, till recently. Now that number is dropping. Why? Because China is growing very fast. There are many opportunities, number one. And many students from the US are going back to China. Number two, Chinese universities have picked up. Chinese universities, not only Tsinghua and all that, the well-known ones, but many universities are now beginning to attract students from overseas. So which means that as a country transitions from middle income, past middle income to higher income status, this transformation also happens. And I believe the same thing is going to happen in the case of India. So already the green shoots of Indian higher education institutions attaining world class, you can see evidence of it. In the last few weeks, I have participated in events, seminars and discussions at BML Munjal University in Gurgaon, which is started by the Hero Group in name of the grandfather Brij Mohan Lal Gunjal. And then the other one is the LM Thapar Institute in Chandigarh. And then you have the OP Jindal Institute, the Ashoka University. Now, these are all universities which are, I'm not saying, see, there is a whole mushrooming of private higher educational institutions, many of which are pure for-profit plays and which offer atrocious education and, you know, bordering on the illegal and etc. And many of them, frankly speaking, should be shut down and they will not be a big loss for us. But there are many among the private universities which are coming up, which are producing world-class learning experiences, world-class pedagogy, they're attracting world-class faculty. So I think this transformation also is going to be happening. And right now we are at an intermediate stage where people leave. it being a brain drain, I wouldn't be too worried. That's a very, alarmist way of looking at it. Because most of the people who leave are also those who don't make it through the NEET entrance exam and all the other entrance exams into the highly competitive university system of India. Like China, India too has a highly competitive university system where there's a lot of stress. Students go to cramming shops and tuition centers and all that, somehow trying to get into the best public universities because of the fees being very reasonable or negligible, and the quality of education also being much better. So I think the combination of all this which is happening, I think it's a normal process. So I think the same thing applies to many things when we talk about in Kerala. The moment we look at comparative data, I think our blood pressures will start coming down, because it's not that we should be very alarmed about it, but we'll get also a more balance and a more sense of proportion about many of the things which are happening in the state.
Let me ask her a question. You just mentioned a very important point, something we haven't heard so far. That those who are leaving now will come back. That's what you said. You said India is going to be big in the terms of investment, in terms of development. Next 20 years is going to be very important for India. So those who leave for higher studies will realize that going back to India or going back to Kerala is better for them, rather than staying in Canada or Australia or elsewhere. So that's why you said they will be coming back. Let me ask you, if that is so, that India is going to be big in the next 20 years, going to be hot in the next 20 years, then shouldn't we Kerala attract investment, a large chunk of it, because we have educated youth and we have a highly developed social indices. In order to attain a large chunk of the investment that may happen in the next 20 years, what should Kerala do in terms of policy changes or attitudinal changes?
That's a very big question. I first want to clarify, I do think people will come back, but I don't know if it'll be everyone or anything like that. But I'm just saying, I do think that as opposed to what was happening in the past, I do think many more people will be willing and wanting to come back because of the opportunity which exists here. In fact, even in my generation, I'm starting to see it, right? So I was probably one of the first ones who did it, 6-7 years ago, and now I'm seeing many, many more people, my peers, who have lived in India, who are thinking about coming back, who are coming back, because they are seeing the opportunities which exist. From a policy perspective, I do think that perception and ease of business is something which really needs to be fundamental to how things happen. Because I do think that one of the reasons why people feel intimidation in looking at Kerala or looking at India to return to set up business is the kind of sometimes it's just about not being able to see the whole picture. Somehow, when it comes to transparency of compliance, for instance, or it comes to general sort of understanding of how business works, it is difficult to do that if you don't have almost like a local guide to kind of walk you through that, right? Which is not necessarily true in some of the other developed nations, right? Where those rules and sort of regulations and how you walk through are a little bit more clear.
More transparent.
More transparent, yeah. Here it tends to be not as easy, and things do change very quickly as well. And so sometimes to navigate that is quite challenging. And I'll say even state to state, right? The rules are very different from each other. The compliances can be very different. So as an organization who wants to be compliant, right, who chooses to be compliant, who chooses to try to navigate that system, it can be quite challenging. And I think especially for people who are coming from outside, when they see that, it is quite intimidating. So I think that is something which
intimidating in what way? Did you face the local opposition when you were setting up your properties?
It could be, no. So intimidating in the sense that it's just not, you don't know what you don't know. Right? So if you, for instance, if you're in any business, if you're walking in and you don't understand the regulation that needs to be there, you don't understand the land regulation rules, or you don't understand the business compliances and things like that, if it's not easy to access a list of compliances, who do you approach, how do you get it done, it can be very difficult, right? Because at some stage you will get frustrated. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges that we have to get people back. If we can make some of these things a little bit less frustrating, more transparent, then I would imagine that people's willingness to sort of invest to, and not at that, I'm not talking about like huge numbers. I'm talking about people who want to do small businesses, start somewhere. I think that would make things a lot easier for them to.
What to do to make it less frustrating?
Transparency. I think sure.
Yeah, I have one, it's more an observation, and maybe you'd like to also comment about it. See, there is, one of the things about this state, it's a small state in a very large country, and this information is very important because it means that the voice of the people of the state and the problems of that, whatever the politics of theirs, is going to be relatively less, amplified at the national level. India, Kerala has 1.5% of the land area of India, 2.5% of the population, 4-point-something% of the gross domestic product of the country, which means the per capita GDP is higher than the national average. But, at one time, I think not too long ago, nearly 10% of the consumer products of the country were bought by this state. In fact, it used to be said in the old days that the chairman of Hindustan Unilever, once a quarter, if there was only one place in India which he had to visit, and that was Kerala, because this was their biggest market. So even now, the 10% may have come down, because most of these are for products which are of mass consumption, like
Kerala is generally 8% of the India market.
So it's about 8%.
In so many products.
So it's come down to only 8%, which is still significant, with 2.5% of the population. So my point is, in a state whose voice is really not going to be heard, I think the state has to learn to be innovative. We have to think of new ways of doing things. And actually the state has demonstrated, when I say the state, I'm not talking about the government, please understand. Sometimes, many of my remarks about Kerala, people assume that I am some pro-LDF or something. I do not have the politics of this state. So, I might have my own political views, that's a different matter, but it has nothing to do. When I say the state, I'm talking about the people of Kerala. For example, if you see, Kerala, to build its, it had one international airport at one time, which was Trivandrum. Trivandrum was the only international airport. Now, Kochi, there was a demand for it, but there was no political consensus, here, and there was no political weight at the center. So what did Kerala do? It built an airport on its own. Now, see that, so actually, this is not just here. In fact, in Karipur airport in Kozhikode, to get that airport constructed, when Amitabh Kant was the district collector there, and he took an initiative to do something, one of the things was, for the first time in India, a user fee was levied, which was the, when they went to banks to borrow money, and the banks asked, how are you going to repay the money? He was able to say, from a user's fee, from the passengers. And the banks bought that argument and they financed it and the airport was built. So, this kind of innovation, don't you think will actually, instead of just shouting and, we should protest for getting our fair share from the Finance Commission and all. But this is one thing which Kerala has done and has done with outstanding success. And today, one of the busiest airports in India was the airport which was constructed out of private initiative in Kochi. So, what do you think? Do you think that?
I think innovation is an incredible thing. I think it is, if you can be ingenious in a place where, things are moving slowly, I think it is an incredible thing. I think it can really push the ante. And again, I'll just, talking about tourism, I think Kerala tourism, and you mentioned Amitabh Kant, Kerala tourism was, it's a phenomenon. It's beyond anything that I think anyone could have expected, right? Because India has traditionally been known for this golden triangle. And somehow Kerala has created a mark for itself internationally, which is it's unbeatable. It's really remarkable. When we entered Trivandrum with our first hotel, the one thing that I was most excited about was that, we can now travel with Kerala Tourism, the contingent, right? Because as a member of Kerala Tourism, because it has a certain weight, right? The branding which was done. It is not that Kerala didn't have incredible natural abundances. It is not like there is no other state which also has natural abundances, but the way that it was branded, the way that it was positioned, the way that it has really, truly, created a strategy which is long term and stuck to it despite what has happened within government and politics is actually an incredible thing. I think it is undervalued in a sense.
So here, there is a thing which I think there is a tremendous resource in Kerala, which is the Keralite, the Malayali people here. They have tremendous resourcefulness which they underestimate all the time. And it's like I've always found, see, it's good to be self-critical, but when you carry too far, it becomes self-defeatism. Then it becomes just that nothing works here, nothing can work, and you'll start advising people go across Walayar checkpost, other side Paradisa, and we are going to be snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. So I just gave some examples of this fact that there have been so many success stories, there have been so many kind of innovations which Malayalis have done, and and where we can rely on the ingenuity and the capacity of the people. I'll just give one example. Few days ago, I went to Perindalmanna for a startup seminar. Now, many people here will think, what the hell were you doing in Perindalmanna for a startup seminar? Because to the best of knowledge, most of you, and you will be right, India had a startup map, Perindalmanna will not figure there. So what the hell was I doing there? I was invited I got a call one day saying, I am Najib Kandapuram, I am the MLA of Perindalmanna. Sir, ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഒരു സെമിനാറിന് keynote address അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു panel discussion വരണം. So I said, what seminar? I was thinking, what seminar could an MLA be inviting me to? So he tells me, it is startup ഒരു സെമിനാറാണ്. സ്റ്റാർട്ടപ്സിൻ്റെ സ്കെയിലപ്പ് പ്രോസസ്സിനെ എങ്ങനെ നമുക്ക് പ്രോത്സാഹിപ്പിക്കാൻ പറ്റും അതിനെപ്പറ്റി ചർച്ച ചെയ്യാനായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഇത്. So I was thinking, wow, here is this MLA who is talking like a entrepreneur. He is talking all modern jargon, startup, scale up, all that. And I went to Perindalmanna, and that 2-3 hours I spent there was a real eye-opener. And our panel, what we told them was that in any ecosystem, any startup ecosystem, one of the essential ingredients is finance. Now everybody talks about incubators, they will set up that, they will say all resources, advice, this, that. But finally you need money. So who's going to put in the money? That early stage, and that's where most of the proposals just lie there and people get frustrated. So we told them, the panel, we told the people of Perindalmanna, see, you can find 10 people, 10 HNIs in this audience who can set aside 10 lakhs from their investable corpus, which they have invested into portfolios and all. Take 10 lakhs out and put it, 10 into 10 is 100 lakhs. This 100 lakhs is the seed capital with which you create a Perindalmanna Angels. And a startup needs only 5 lakhs sometimes, 3 lakhs, sometimes 10 lakhs. And you start backing your own startups. The difference between you and the P's and the big VCs in Bangalore is they are expecting 10x and 15x and all at exit. You guys are not necessarily expecting that. So, I mean, what was interesting, Shruti, was that when this proposal was made, it was not blank faces which greeted us. Immediately there was a buzz in the hall. There were people, animated discussions going on. And I am certain by the time my car left and went back, already 10 people had come forward saying, Yangalida, 10 lakhs.
Well, you said there is so much of resources in Kerala, and Bala sir said so much of resourcefulness of Malayalis. If we combine these resources and resourcefulness, then I think we can achieve a lot. How can we use innovation? For example, AI, artificial intelligence, AI and generative AI, You said you just won an award in technological innovation in your hotels. So how can we make use of, take advantage of these generative AI for our advancement in the tourism industry?
So I can talk a little bit about what we're doing in that, but I actually wanted to make one point about your story. I think what's also amazing is that there are enough young people who are interested and willing to go after a startup career, startup life in Perunalmala. That's a pretty amazing thing, right? Because these are kids who probably were never told that they could do that. For them to have the vision and then to have an MLA support them in that vision is actually pretty phenomenal, right? Because that would not have happened 10 years ago. And those are the kids you should ask this question to, because they will know a lot better than I what AI can actually do, right? There is going back to just the fact that Kerala has invested so much in education, that we have these educated students, they will come out really well. Finally, I think all of that has been invested into the education system in Kerala will serve Kerala well, because these young people will do remarkable things, right? Here, there, wherever, but they will do remarkable things. And I think that is a testament to the success of the state, finally. When it comes to technology and technology implementation, what I do in my organization is I have a very different approach to technology than most of the tourism industry, and specifically the hotel industry, in that I think I have always been so comfortable with technology that I have had no problem in sort of figuring out what technology can do for me and then figuring out how I can implement it to the work that I do. That is fairly uncommon in the hotel industry, because most of the hotel industry has been built in a certain way and it continues to exist in a certain way, right? So I look at it a little bit different. A lot of the work that we do has to do with how you can make a hotel more efficient, how you can make it operationally more efficient, how can you make people's jobs easier so they can concentrate on things which really matter, like like service, right? Service is something which we realize you cannot replace people. So how do you make their jobs easier on the back end so that they can actually spend more time in the service? And that's where generative AI can also come into play, because a lot of the work that we do in the front is also trying to figure out what somebody wants, what a guest would like or prefer before they tell us or before they even know, right? So if you can understand from a guest's behavior, for instance, what is a preference that they have about, let's say, the temperature of their room, or the kind of coffee that they drink every morning, what time do they drink it at, and you surprise them with some small elements like this, right? Make sure the coffee is there exactly as they like before they even pick up the phone. Make sure the room is perfectly comfortable, stocked with the right pillow at the right temperature, with the right amenities. If you can figure out all of that using AI, then your level of service and the guest experience that you're providing is at a different level. So that's where we play. It's still very nascent. I think there's still so much more that can happen, but it's a pretty...
Bala sir, since you mentioned the angels and making investments in among the startup industries, Shruti is a director of innovation investment management in her Shibulal's family office, isn't it? You are the director. So you must be making several investments, venture capital investment or angel investments in new startups?
No, so we have a different platform called Axelor, which actually invests into the startup space. So I don't... Axelor.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a startup. It was an incubator and accelerator, but now mostly it does funding into the startup space. So that's how it happens in our office, yeah.
So I want to just make one more observation and get your response, any of you, Kishore or Shruti, to it before I think we should probably open up for questions. And this observation is, I mentioned Perunalmala. As far as I'm concerned, I was just thinking, one of the highest in terms of higher education, the most in terms of as a center of education of Kerala is Kottayam. In terms of higher education, my grandfather was from Cherthala at a time when Cherthala did not have a high school, and he had to take a Vallam every day, cross the Vemarad Kayal, and he was taught by Mamam Mapla was one of his teachers. And my grandfather later, when he became a doctor, he was one of the earliest life subscriptions to Manorama he took. One of the earliest ones he took. So my point is, Kottayam was always a center. Kerala's, one of its strong points is the high gross enrollment rate into higher education, which is around 50%. Only Tamil Nadu is there. All the rest of the states are very much behind that. So which means a significant proportion of the people want to go to higher education. And this is itself one of the drivers which is driving so many young people to seek higher education admissions elsewhere, because all the state higher education, especially the better ones, are all filled. And once they are filled up, because the GER is so high, they have to find admission somewhere else. So is there some way, in which we can build a consensus around this, that, say, towns like Kottayam can take a initiative to position themselves as knowledge knowledge economy centers, and if a few people come together, supported by, say, a Kottayam Angels like that, a small fund, you can spark off, like you made an observation that it is amazing that Perindalmanna, if Perindalmanna could have that, Kottayam will have 10 times that number, isn't it? Why don't we spark this off instead of waiting for government to do anything? What can government do in any case? They're strapped for cash. They're trying to find the money to pay the next month's salary. They are worried about more urgent things like that for them. I think there's enough money in the community, among the people, to be able to do something. Don't you think it's time that more Perindalmannas came forward?
So I'm not that familiar with the education landscape across the state, but I have one example, which is Manipal, which is in Karnataka, which has become an education hub over the last, again, 10-15 years, which is done very, very well, and they are attracting some phenomenal people to come and study there. And you mentioned students going into higher education for their undergraduate degree, their graduate degree, BSc, BCom, BA, that type of thing. What's interesting is also the kind of these institutions that you mentioned that are coming up in the north. They're also investing into master's programs and PhD programs by way of investing into research, which is something which was not happening in India at any significant level before. Now that means that academics will have an interest in staying back in India, which means that innovation will happen in India if industry and academics can team up to provide real, impact. So I think it's an interesting thing. But Manipal, for instance, has been a great success story. I think there's absolutely scope, I would imagine, although, again, this is not the area that I'm very familiar with, but across the state, Kottayam perhaps, if you can do something like that,
Some of the campuses which I get a chance to go around here, in Kerala, I won't take the names, but there are many such potential Manipals in the making, which they are run by people who are not running these with purely profit motive, who are interested in putting in money, into such institutions and waiting a little patiently, who are willing to listen to a board of academic advisors who talk about medium-term and long-term planning instead of just looking at filling the seats for the next admission year. There are many such organizations coming up in Kerala also, and I hope that if that continues, I think we are going to find this gradual change which is happening in the higher education scene will also be happening in Kerala.
Since you asked for my response also, let me tell you, I'm not very upbeat about these startup investments in Kerala. Perindalmanna is one example. You said you didn't follow it up whether 10 people actually invested 10 lakhs each and made a corpus of 100 lakhs. So we don't know what happened there, even though there was a buzz about it. Kerala, Malayalis have Kerala is one of the states where the people have the least amount of investment in Indian financial sector. That is in mutual funds, in stocks and shares. Kerala is one of the least. I mean, Maharashtra is the highest. Everyone, even low-level employees employees invest in mutual funds and shares. Kerala is one place where with very high remittance, crores sitting in the bank, they put it in FDs or they put in the buy gold or they invest in the traditional businesses like trading gold, jewelry, or textiles. And of course, one of the recent investments is in the tourism sector. Coming to the startup sector, there is CAN, Kerala Angel Network, a network of a few individuals who are into investing. But I looked at the figures of Kerala Angel Network and I found that they have invested in a few startup industries, of course, which is not enough, which is much less than what we see in other states. Actually, more investment has come to Kerala startup companies from other states than from inside the state. So I'm not very upbeat about if that is happening, that Malayalis are also accepting investment in startup industries at one of the avenues rather than the traditional ways. That's good.
Kishore, that's precisely the point. You have to start. See, the point, like Goethe, the famous German poet, said, we shouldn't just criticize and point out the negatives. He says, if you get an idea, start it. Beginning has magic power and genius in it. That's what Goethe said. So my point here is everything has to start somewhere. And these are early days here. So what is happening is, I think there is a mindset change. We first have to change the mindset. See, we are talking about a state which, like the rest of the country, everybody's dream was a government job. Padmanabhante Naligash and the Magan Kittanam, which meant you get Sarkar service, you get, that was the dream. From that, today, parents are willing to look at a smart son or daughter graduating from an engineering college and willing to go and planning to go for a startup. They're willing to look at that itself. So social change happens slowly. And I think in the context of a rapidly changing economy at the national level and at the state level, any discussion on India must be, on Kerala must be framed within India. It's the fastest growing large economy in the world and likely to be the fastest growing large economy in the world, at least for the next couple of decades, if we play our cards right. In that framework, I think there is a huge role for Kerala, huge scope for Kerala. Now, whether we do it or not and how fast we do it is a different question.
You agree with that?
Yes, I mean, I agree that, it is, there is...
to make a beginning, yeah.
Of course, that I absolutely agree with, right? I mean, even if I look at my journey or look at the previous generation, my father's journey, whomever, everyone had to be a pioneer. There had to be a pioneer in order for there to be somebody to come after, right? So I think in that sense, absolutely. If Malayali entrepreneurs are going to be there. That I don't think is the issue. You have very smart people. You have people who are exposed. They will figure out really cool innovations. The entrepreneurs will be there. The question is whether you will have Malayali investors or will they go outside for investment, right? Will they go to Bangalore? Will they go to Hyderabad? Will they go to Bombay for investment? If you can find investors within Kerala, then that's the best case scenario. Now, how do you influence that, right? That will take time and it takes education. Now, you were saying that people are investing into FDs and mutual funds. Now, FDs and mutual funds, low risk, low return. At some point, wealth will also build and people will get educated by folks such as, the ones who are here in this room to say that, hey, listen, a small portion of your wealth or your portfolio, why don't you move it into something which is slightly more high in risk and slightly more high in return, right? That is an education which has to happen. And I think banks have a place to play in that because they are trusted individuals. Now, by no means do I think that banks should go out and say, please take 50% of your wealth and stick it into startups. I think that is a terrible idea. But if you can take a little bit of money and put it in and try it out and be willing to take the risk and willing to take the return, then, that's a great start. And that will take time because if it's at 0 today, tomorrow it'll be 1%, I'll take 2%. Yeah, and finally, where do you want it to end? You can't have it more than 10%, right? As I was a portfolio manager for a little bit, so I can say this a little bit. But you cannot have it beyond a certain threshold either. You shouldn't have that and you shouldn't advise as such. But but starting somewhere is a wise thing to do, and I think that if education amongst the population who has that disposable income is happening, then slowly people will be willing to take that risk.
You think financial sector is going to be hot for India too in the next 20 years, as you said just before? Financial sector investment.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I should not be the one at all commenting on this. But yeah, I believe so. I think the financial sector can absolutely support the, the innovation and the entrepreneurship which is happening across the country, support the growth of the economy. It has to. It almost is like it has to support. Otherwise, where will we be,
Now, some of the numbers to answer Kishore's question. See, we are among the, if you look at bank credit as a share of gross domestic product, GDP in India, it is about 50%. The figure for the US is about 150%. The figure for China is even higher than that. So, we are nowhere near using even bank credit, number one. Number two is if you look at our savings rates, etc., even that is still, it is going to pick up as income picks up. Of course, at the lower levels, it will be almost entirely spent on consumption. But after that, it will start going into savings. So those changes are going to happen and are happening actually in India. So especially our financial services sector, there was this Tarun Ramadare committee. S. Ramadore's son, Tarun Ramadare, is an economist. And he headed a committee appointed by the Reserve Bank of India to study what do households do with their savings. And very interesting results they came up with. The most astonishing result which they came up with was the top quartile and the bottom quartile, in the income distribution. The top quartile in terms of the highest income quartile and the lowest quartile, both of these quartiles, their behavior was almost exactly the same in terms of the amount of money which went into financial assets, which went into property and which went into gold. There was hardly any difference. The quartile I'm talking about, not the 1% or 2%, then you'll find difference. But in the top quartile, which meant the entire middle class of India and more, etc., the behavior was no different than the lowest quartile. They were spending the same proportion, they were investing the same proportion in financial assets, which was very small, much more into land and significant amount into gold. So India's financial sector is just going to open up. For example, in the recent times when the Federal Reserve in the US, when they went in for quantitative easing, and that used to immediately have an impact on Indian stock markets, because when interest rates go up by 50 basis points in the US, a huge outflow of dollars will come from India. So what used to happen was Indian stock markets used to be hit. This year, in 2023, very interesting thing was noticed. In 2023, twice that happened, and the stock markets fell initially, but immediately rebounded. So people were wondering, where did the money come from? It came from mutual funds, from retail investors in India, which meant household savings channeled through mutual funds picked up the slack. Despite billions being taken out by FIIs, there was no problem because the money was compensated by the huge flow which came from household. So I think that is something which is just waiting to be tapped, and possibly it's very good news for the economy because it's there, waiting there, but it needs, it needs good investment opportunities and avenues for all that money to come out.
So tourism is also we have a very good feel for spending patterns, right? And so I will also say, the international travelers have not come back to India in full force as they did before COVID. But the domestic tourism market is doing incredibly well. We have done very, very well over the last few years, and that's because of domestic spending and domestic consumerism. I invest in pilgrimage towns because I don't charge, I charge decently in these towns because I know that there are people who are coming who are able to spend. And so I'm able to provide a quality of product and service at that level. That was not the case, in the 80s and 90s. It is the case today. It is very different how we see that people are behaving. And it is domestic. The story is very much about how people in the state can spend and how they spend. They spend very quietly, I will say, in the south, right? Kerala and Tamil Nadu especially, I've seen that it's a very quiet spending, but the money is there, the investment is there, and they're doing things very silently, but very smartly.
I think we are about to overshoot time, and one last question to you. That is, most of the people at Chennai sitting here may have invested in Kottayam, in food processing, in latex industries, and in tourism, of course, in resorts and houseboats, and of course in real estate too. What is your message to them, the do's and don'ts, as an entrepreneur who has invested in Kerala and succeeded? What is your message to them?
So, I have my message first and foremost is that please consider the long-term implications of any business that you are getting into and the impact that you could have. I think that it is very attractive to make short-term decisions, and I think that those can have quite disastrous results. So please do have a long-term vision when you are making any sort of investment. Number two, I'm extremely passionate about responsible hospitality, and that concept of responsibility and sustainability is something which I think applies to several industries and businesses. And I think in Kerala, there is this intrinsic sort of interest and support which goes towards that. So, I urge all of you to be a bit conscious about the kind of, the kind of work that you're getting into. Take a look at it, see what is the kind of implication that it's having on the employment within a community, what is the implication that it's having on the environment. Because I think that, generationally, I think these are very important things. For India, it is important that we continue to build institutions. And that's something that I'm very, very passionate about. So I really feel that people must look at the overall consequences of the kinds of businesses that they're getting into and make those decisions very responsibly.
Yeah, on that note, very positive note, we can open the forum for questions from the audience.
Thanks, Bala, Kishore, and Shruti. It's a great narrative, I guess, we've heard. Because I guess right from the beginning, I guess there is a common narrative about Kerala that nothing works here. But I guess today we have a counter narrative which says mostly that, if you look at from the GSDP to the social indices, to what could happen right here, I think you haven't said much that is not working here. Other than that, it could be more transparent, number one. Two, we need to have, we have it here. Of course, tourism being a successful example of how local entrepreneurship really got, I would say, because 80% of the investment came from local entrepreneurs, and it came from within the state, and 90% of it was funded by the banks. It is, though declared as an industry, it didn't have any subsidies or any kind of support, yet it thrived in Kerala. So the question is, we say that there is a problem. Do we really have a problem here? Or is it mostly what our perceptions or the popular narrative that is driving thought, perceptions, and the whole idea that something is really wrong in Kerala? Is it real? It's something that we need to really start thinking about, because wherever there is something that's bad, that gets highlighted, amplified, and talked about. But there are a lot of good things that's happening in Kerala. For example, we've got good ports, good roads now. We've got 4 airports and the 5th airport coming in the state. High social indices, education, and all that. So the question is, what's the real narrative? Is the popular narrative real? Or is there a real narrative that is there?
I think you can answer it from your own personal experience here.
Yeah, because...
I believe in this idea of continuous improvement, right? There is always something to improve. There will always be something that we could do better. There's always something more that private sector can do. There's always something that government can do, bureaucracy, there's always something, right, that can be better. And that there's also always something that we can all complain about, right? I think the resilience of a community and the society is, how do you get past some of those challenges, right? How do you work under it, over it, through it, and how do you get past it to still have success? I think Kerala has done that pretty well. I mean, granted, there will be challenges, right? But Kerala has done pretty well. I mean, that it goes back, this whole, the maximum number of 5-star hotels in the state, in the country. I mean, that is quite telling, right? To say that, hey, listen, not only was the opportunity there, but somebody came and took advantage of it. So it's not that challenges don't exist. Challenges, of course, exist. We all, either live in Kerala or we work in Kerala, we do something here. We all know that there are challenges at times. But contextually, is it as bad as what the perception may be? Is it much worse than other places? I'm not entirely sure. I'm doing some work in the north of the country. The challenges are there as well. It's just that it's different, So there are certain things which work here better. There are certain things. So sometimes I do feel like it is blown a little bit out of proportion, and it's kind of the way that you look at it. But of course, as a society, I think everybody, the whole world likes to complain sometimes, and so we do so. And yeah.
Yeah. Second question from there.
Hi, good evening all. My name is Prasad. I represent a company called Ojas. It's a new company we started 5 years back with 100 lakhs, and now we are doing almost 1,000 lakhs. Okay. Since you are into hospitality business, most of the people are traveling across the world to have day life and night life in tourism industry, right?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Most of them are traveling across the world. Tourists are moving around the world to have a day life and night life. The problem with Kerala is there is no night life in most of the tour locations. When we have Kumaragam here, people are afraid to go out after 7:30 in Kumaragam. So what is your view on that? How can we have a nightlife in Kumaragam or in Kovalam or in Patanjali?
Yeah, so I think safety is something that we as a country really need to work upon. I think that this needs to be a matter of national importance, honestly, and that especially women's safety is something that needs to completely transform in this country. From what I understand, Kerala maybe is a little bit better than some other parts of the country, of course, but it is something that we have to change. And I think there's an economic implication of this. If we are able to do this, then I think foreign travel to Kerala and to India in general will be far higher than what it ever was before. If you look at countries like Singapore, or you look at countries like, there's European countries where safety is not as much of a concern as it is in India. Why is it that those countries are getting rushed by tourism? Italy is a good example. Italy is not economically a very, progressive state, right?
Shruti, I think his question was not about safety. His question was that there's no nightlife.
So my point about this is that, if you provide safety, I believe that nightlife is something which can happen because I'll just give you an example of this. Mexico has an area called Cancun. Mexico is known to be a fairly unsafe place, right? But Cancun is notoriously safe because the cops and the local regulators make sure that tourism and safety of the consumers who come to that region is very, very well taken care of. So nobody will touch a tourist. Whatever gangs, mafia, whoever is there, they will not touch a tourist. It's because that safety is there. That is why that nightlife is able to thrive. So similarly...
Here I think the problem is, by law, the nightlife cannot operate. That's the problem.
Yeah, we have to switch off the light and mic sets after 9. That is a rule here. So who will come and make a nightlife here? So if you go and invest in Kumaragam, nobody will move out from the property after 7.
Okay, so not the problem that I understood.
So negative sexes, problems exist which need to be solved, isn't it? Yeah.
But that is
not everything.
My
not
point
so
is, that is my counter to that is, that doesn't seem to have prevented tourists from coming in and filling the resorts. That's all.
That's right, sir. But the people are spending nightlife. If you go to Goa, people are spending after 6 than what they are spending in the daytime. Right? So there is safety issue. It is there. And there are no options to move out. We are also planning to invest in a eco resort in Upper Kuttanadu. It's a 22-acre property. But the problem is, if you don't have a nightlife in that area, nobody will come and stay in that resort.
I'm not very sure whether that assumption is correct, that if we don't have bars open after 9 o'clock, nobody will come and stay. That has been disproved by the fact that people are coming and staying.
I will actually, I'll give you an example of something which we have done. So we have a property in Coorg, it's called the Tamara Coorg. We have a child policy wherein we don't allow children under the age of 12 on our property. This is absolutely counterintuitive to the typical idea of what tourism in India looks like, because everybody has told me, you have to allow children. I stuck by it. I said, nothing doing, I'm not allowing. I've not made a single exception. My own children have not been inside that property because they are under the age of 12. We passed that hump. We said we're not going to do it, and we got the customer. We still get the customer. We found the customer who wanted to come to us because of the silence, because of the sort of the wellness aspect, because of the nature aspect, because of the kind of setting that we provide, the experience that we provide. They found us and they came to us. So I agree with you. I think you have to find the right kind of property or positioning within the larger market which can work. It is not, nightlife is not a switch. And trust me, nightlife can very well go off as well. It's very easy to set up a bar. A year from now, are you still running that bar profitably? Very difficult. It's a very challenging thing.
Yeah, third question, please.
In that question, earlier the monsoon, in Kumaragam monsoon prevented everything. The Coconut Lagoon has opened over there. During monsoon, nobody would come from outside India, like that. But they started selling monsoon. That was an innovative idea. Absolutely. Now the booking is full. Now we are complaining about the nightlife. Sir, you told about the innovation. I will narrate a story. Federal Bank, how Federal Bank helped years back. Kerala Police Society, they wanted to start a housing cooperative society. They started a lottery ticket. The lottery ticket was guaranteed by none other than the managing director of Federal Bank. That was the guarantee for the person who is purchasing it. It was done none other than Jacob Tunus, our principal consultant. He has done it. So people accepted that thing and it became a success story. I will tell you another thing, sir, because nostalgic investment, madam, I am going to ask that only. Nostalgic investments. Kadalama Mottaidan Karil Varum. Chandrasekhar sir, Chertale Kuruchu Paranju. You can understand my Malay. The same thing is happening all over Tamil Nadu. Who has become rich or who has gone out, invented several things, or earned money, comes back to their own native land or their village and investing. Will that happen to my small Kottayam, where it was referred as a educational hub, from where Malayala Manorama rose up years back? Is there any possibility for such a investment?
I think you should answer probably.
I think Kishore is the best to answer that. No, I think there is tremendous scope. I think that, for example, just to, I don't know about Kottayam specifically. I know somebody who's doing this in the field of hospitality tourism in Wayanad. There is a young guy, he's not very young now, he's an IT professional whose passion, he's from Wayanad and his passion is tourism and trekking and hiking and all. So he has set up, his business is based on homestays with ordinary farmer families. And he goes to whoever is interested and tells them, one room you set aside, the bathroom must be Western toilet and all that. And it's simple, not much investment. But he ensures that those points, he has got, I think, about 100 homesteads have enrolled. Ordinary people have enrolled. His customers are from Germany and they love this experience. They want to stay with ordinary farmers. They want to eat their food. They want to go to church with them into the local. They want to experience. They want to go for a hike, everything. And they are willing to pay $200, $300 a night for that experience, And so 100 farmers who initially signed on, and now I think more farmers. So, as a very good supplement to their income, they are able to get for certain months in the year a very useful addition to their income. So I think the scope is unlimited. And what I think the main thing which can spread this across Kerala rapidly is the fact that we are a completely literate state. We have very good communications. We have a good transportation system from village to village. If you look at it, we may not have expressways and all, too many of them. But for people to move around the state, this is one of the best states to move around in. And once water transportation and all these are also given some attention, I think you will have a place where tourism can become, like one of the mottos of Thai Kerala was every home an enterprise. Here you can say every home a tourist enterprise.
Yeah, we are short time by 10 minutes, a little more than 10 minutes. One last question, please.
Could I just add one point? Is that, I also think that Kerala underestimates its women sometimes. Women are the ones who are in these homes who have the capacity and capability to actually make these homestays possible, and they are educated, which means that they will be able to run the finances of those homestays incredibly well. If there is actually some investment which goes into that, promoting women-run homestays across the state, I think it could be very successful.
Yeah, one last question, please.
This is regarding what you said about startups. If you look at the background of Kerala over the last maybe over the say 40-50 years, what have children seen? People going to Dubai, their fathers, their grandfathers, their uncles. That's all children who were growing up and so-called future entrepreneurs have seen. In the last 10 years, when Dubai was slacking off and people came back, this generation has realized that Dubai is no longer the answer to their problems. In a comparative seminar on startups in Karnataka, the most interesting startups have come from Kerala. I won't say the most successful or the most numerous, but the most interesting out of the most strangest things have come from Kerala. Like in Bala's book, 50 companies have become world class. So they were not startups, then who were? Nowhere else, I think 50 silent companies have become world class, and so many more. You can't say the same maybe about Bangalore or Hyderabad.
Well, as for startups, the number of startups is one of the highest in India. We have about 4,000 startups in Kerala. But the investment in these startups, you need investment anyway, that comes from mostly outside the state, not from Kerala. As I mentioned, Kerala Angel Network is one organization that invests in the startups in Kerala within the state itself. Apart from that, Malayalis haven't taken up investment in startups as as a major avenue for investment. So the investment is not happening, even though there are hundreds of youngsters engaged in startup activities. That is true. And in future, this may change, and there may be more investment flowing into Kerala. And I think we can have a better future. Since our discussion is about the future of Kerala, I think we can have a better future. Those youngsters who go out now would come back, as she said, because India is hot. They find that there are more opportunities in India and also within Kerala. Let's hope that they would come back later. Thank you.
Would you like to say anything by way of closing, Shruti?
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to share the podium with both of you, and I look forward to the future of Kerala. I hope it is extremely bright. I think it would benefit, of course, everyone who's in this room, but I think it's an important thing for a state like ours to go ahead and make and have that kind of progress. The investment that the state has put into, like I said, education, into societal sort of, having that equality and things like that. I think it's really important for us to see the success come through in Kerala.
Thank you. I hope after we leave, a group of you will get together and form, unless you have already done it, I hope you will form a Kottayam Angels. Thank you.
Word of thanks by Ajit V. Matthew, Deputy Vice President, Federal Bank.
Very good evening all. an amazing motivation-packed 60 minutes are now over. We Mallus are always be proud, and we will always say that, yeah, we are from Kerala. At every point, every part of the world, if we go, we'll tell that, yeah, we are from Kerala, especially from Kottayam also. The next question will be from, where are you from Kerala? And I'm also from Kottayam, so I will tell that I'm from Kottayam. Oh, then they will ask the land of, then exactly from where? Then Pudupalli. Pudupalli, oh, you are from the place of Umbanchandi. Yes, proudly we will tell that I am from the place of Mr. Umbanchandi. Okay, that's the thing. Whenever we are introducing, we will tell that we are proud of that being a Malayali or Keralite. And wherever we go, we will say that there will be some Malayalis. Actually, when the discussion started, and every day morning we are seeing the financial crisis of government of Kerala and the media coverage, everything actually we are passing through. And this will create some gloomy and shady picture of Kerala to our mind also. So after attending this function, I was also having, before coming here also, I'm having personally a gloomy picture about Kerala, and as some of the discussion lines were there, many of our youths are going abroad, and they are also not that much interested to stay here, starting businesses here. So, but after this discussion, I was having a ray of hope, or I'm a little bit positive minded, because the things are not shadowstic. It's brighter and brighter. That's the thing I got from the discussions from here. Anyway, this is a very motivation-packed discussion. Thank you all. Thank you Federal Bank, and thank you this Malayala Manorama to organize this. First of all, I thank you, Bala sir, because whenever I'm at the part of head office team, so I used to attend some of the functions over there in Ernakulam. In Ernakulam, some entrepreneurs organization, one EO Kerala chapter, one very good event was there. Past consecutively 2 years, we were the part of the function. At the time, I saw our Bala sir was a very eminent and presence over there, and he is very much industrious in promoting this culture of entrepreneurship in the younger generation. And thanking you for your presence, Bala sir, and keep motivating the younger generation. Thank you for your kind words and the motivation factor. So next, Shruti ma'am, really first time I'm seeing you, ma'am. I admire your views on the hospitality, then views of Kerala things, and obviously we from this is the cross section of Kottayam business group. As rightly said, many of us were from the hospitality industries also. So you will be a great motivation to them. And thanking you, madam, for your precious time being with us. And after that, Kishore sir, the moderator for this evening, this discussion. Thank you for directing the talk show, and thank you very much, sir. Final things, actually, here the audience. I already said that you are the cross-section of the industrialist or business group of Kottayam, and so many things to do to the society and the Kottayam, that's a business chapter. With all the busy schedule, you find yourself to be here. A great thank you for each and everyone who came here, and blessed us with your presence. And apart from that, here there are officials from Malayala Manorama and officials from Federal Bank also. Thank you for arranging this beautiful function. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone. We have arranged high tea for you outside this hall. Please enjoy it. Thank you.